And welcome back.
Welcome back.
We had a very quick drink break there, but we are back and we are thrilled to welcome Scott Hanselman.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Hello,
Hello.
hello. How's it going?
Good. How are you
Good.
doing?
I'm very, very well. This is the beginning of my day. What day is it globally here right now?
Oh,
What is our
I don't know
time
either,
zone?
Scott. I think it's Wednesday and it's about 7 p.m., 6:30 p.m. our
6:30
time. So,
p.m.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Cool.
getting
Well, I've just
started.
let I've just had the boys head out for school, so our day is just getting started.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks for giving us some of your time. It's great to see you here.
Of course.
We have plenty of questions to ask you. We've got a lot of burning questions, some from the
Yes.
community, some from ourselves, but maybe we can start with one that came from a discussion we were having. You see a lot of tech in your role. In fact, no, we'll start with a different one.
Yes.
Your role. Could you explain your role?
Role. Yeah.
Because you have this kind of mythical unicorn role in some ways. You get to see loads of different technologies, loads of different areas of Microsoft. You're not necessarily tied to a specific product, maybe Visual Studio and developer realm there, but maybe you can just tell us a bit about what you do actually day to day.
Well, I got a promotion recently, so I have this fancy title. I'm Vice President of Developer Community. So my team includes the Open Source Programs Office, which is called the OSPO, led by Jeff Wilcox, and the Developer Community team, led by James Montemagno. So I think of the way I think about it is that our job is to make the community successful from the moment that they go out and search for something on the web all the way to the point where they go and deploy it, hopefully in Azure, but maybe in the bookstore or one of the other clouds. And then during that process, they're touching documentation, they're touching the community, they're talking to user groups, they're engaging with humans, they're doing things like community days, they're watching videos. Are they going to be successful in their journey as they go from emerging developer to developer who has deployed something?
That's fantastic. So, I mean, we hear this term developer advocate a lot, and it's often associated to people who maybe stand up on stage and present and promote products. They're more evangelists, but it sounds like you're almost the inverse. You are a true advocate for developers inside Microsoft and pushing for that experience to be as seamless as
Yeah.
possible for people.
I've never been a fan of the word evangelist.
Yeah.
Evangelism implies that I'm knocking on your door randomly and trying to convert you to my way of thinking, and that never worked out for most people. If you recall, there were a number of crusades that were fought over that. That also is the old Microsoft way of doing it, which is like our operating system, our languages, our thing, rah, 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 rah. But true advocacy would indicate that I want you to be successful no matter what you use. And if you use the entire stack or you use a little bit of the stack, that's cool. And if you use this cloud or that cloud, as long as a piece of it is, again, I do work for the big company. If you use Visual Studio, you use Visual Studio Code, you use .NET, but you do it in Notepad, I don't care. I just want you to
Yeah.
be happy.
That's awesome.
That's a great line of thought.
Yeah, I agree. So that actually flows nicely to our next question, which is you see a lot of tech on a daily basis. What's the thing that you've seen in the last year that you can tell us about maybe that's made you go, wow, that's awesome,
Yeah.
and got really excited about?
Oh wow. As people know, I am rather excitable. So I get excited about like just all kinds of random stuff. So I would say kind of three things that I'm currently geeking out about. At the high level, I have been kind of a VR enthusiast, but not really like this is taking over the world. I think the Meta Quest really kind of nailed it. So I'd love to be able to work on Windows. So I've been using things like a VR desktop, which is actually written in C#, which is a really great application that lets you like be on your headset and type and have as many monitors as you want. I have 3 monitors, but you can use 5 monitors with VR desktop, which is super cool. That's one thing I'm excited about. WebAssembly, or WASI or WASM,
Yeah.
the WebAssembly machine language rather, and the WebAssembly interfaces are interesting. The idea that you can now compile, there's an experimental workload with .NET 8 where you can compile directly, not to intermediate language, but to WebAssembly, means that density for microservices could be interesting, but also location transparency, that something could run in the browser or run on the server, is now more possible than ever before. That's something that I'm excited about. And then I'm always still working on my my Apple One computer. Let me see if I can
Cool.
switch over. I've been trying to build this Apple computer with a kit from a company called Smarty Kits. So So I'm building an Apple from original parts. So it's like I just put the CPU in last
Wow.
week. I've got the jumper wires and all that kind of stuff. So I think about virtual reality and then building an Apple computer
Is
from
that an
7400
actual
series chips.
official Apple case, or it's a replica that someone's printed and you've got
That is
other
a
parts?
replica, and it's got some Arduino, but it's also got some AND gates and some NAND gates. So when I'm thinking about high level things like VR, sometimes I need to go and run, really low level and just
Yeah.
drive a stick shift.
Yeah.
So like sometimes you drive a self-driving electric car, and sometimes you just like build a car in your garage. So I oscillate between those two things.
Amazing. I'm a massive Apple geek, so actually that's right up my street. I'm gonna be looking that up
Oh yeah,
straight after this.
this thing is super cool. There's like directions on how to do it and how to like. It's a whole JavaScript website, and I was actually on my YouTube. You can see me suffering through it.
It's amazing.
I
Very
got it
cool.
to boot up recently, so I'm pretty excited about that.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you
from Smarty Kit. I'm not affiliated with them, but it's smartykit.io.
Awesome.
Good Christmas gift.
You mentioned YouTube there. We were going to bring up TikTok because I think your TikToks made a lot of people love you.
Yeah.
I've particularly enjoyed your TikToks where you've kind of helped motivate people, where they've said, "Oh, someone told me I could never be an engineer, I never do this," and you say, "Hey, hold on a second, that's fine. You don't need a formal background or a degree in education." I think those are lovely.
Yeah, I'm an old person on TikTok, which is kind of funny. So like, there's my TikTok. It's kind of made me a little bit famous amongst like my son's friends at school. So I'll pick him up at school, and then like the little kids, "Oh, Scott Hanselman, you're on TikTok." But it's bizarre because it's mostly just me talking about Commodore 64s, and like this way, like the Chipotle napkin holder, some pretty exciting stuff going on. But yeah, I talk about code spaces, and I talk about my AI and how to build a meaningful career. But you're right, I don't tolerate nonsense or people being haters.
Yeah.
So I will try to support folks as best I can on TikTok.
That's good. There was you had a lot of supportive words on social media recently. Even there was some, we won't get into it, but debates about having diverse lineup of speakers, and you highlighted Hansel Minutes, which has had a fantastic run. What, 900 plus
Yeah.
episodes? Is
Oh
that
my
right?
goodness. Yeah, I think this year we'll hit 900, and let me see here. We're gonna hit 925 by the end of the
Wow,
year.
that's
So
awesome, and
Yeah.
we're
just
coming up on,
amazing
I think we'll
bunch of
end the year
people.
on 925.
To
It
keep
is
that
a good group of folks.
to keep that going over the years, that is just again
Mm.
consistency and a lot of work.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Someone accused me of being an AI last week, which I was
Oh,
mostly offended by.
yes. I
This was
saw
not a
that.
joke.
Clearly, yeah.
They
Clearly.
could not conceive of that body of work being created over 20 years, and they said they were going to have me delisted from Google Podcast. So they were going to send a complaint saying that these were fake people and that they didn't think that the show was real, which was
And
offensive.
Scott Hanselman doesn't exist either.
Yeah, I'm still scrolling, by the way. I'm only in the 700s.
Yeah,
so
that's
I would
yeah,
encourage you
truly,
to check it out.
truly
Amazing
amazing.
people.
Truly amazing. If I'm not going to make you pick a favorite episode, but if someone's just or a favorite guest, but if someone's just coming around to this concept of Hansel Minutes, could you tell us a couple of fantastic things to go and watch, listen to?
Well, certainly my favorite guest would be my wife. So having
Okay,
my wife on the show.
you're
to
allowed
talk
that bias.
about,
That's okay.
Having my wife on the show to talk about how she tolerates me is always valuable. And then while we're talking about podcasts, it's worth also noting that this developer's life is back after a 7-year, 8-year hiatus. So this was a show that Rob Connery and I do, and our last show was 2015.
Oh, wow.
And then we just got inspired again, and we put another show out a couple weeks ago, and we recorded yet another show just about yesterday. So that should be coming out in the next week or so.
Amazing. Oh, that's great. We'll make sure to pop in the chat links to all of these things again, so people can go check them out if they don't already know about them.
Of course.
Can we
of course.
talk about the computer stuff that they don't teach you about? Because I have a fan
computer
for
stuff
you
they
in
didn't
my
teach you in school.
household. My husband is glued onto those videos. Every time I walk past the lounge, he's on the sofa watching you on TV. So that is like a well-known thing at home for me.
That is very kind. Yeah, I got a YouTube. If I didn't have a full-time job, I would spend more time on YouTube. I think that YouTube might be my retirement like job. But
you
Bring
yeah,
it on.
computers
We
just
are
definitely
said
all
need
you're an
here to
old
watch you.
just said you're an old guy on TikTok, but if that becomes your retirement, you'll be like, yeah,
well, I'm also an old
oldest
guy on
tech
YouTube.
YouTuber out there or something. 95, Scott
Yeah,
Hanselman's there, like still back in my
it is
day.
enjoyable.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned AI, and we saw your keynote at the
NDC Copenhagen.
no, the AI day,
This, yeah.
the AI day where you did the well, basically generative AI. We were discussing how you were able to explain generative AI in a fantastic way, in a really simplified way, and not to put you on the spot, but could you give us a glimpse? What is generative AI?
Oh, well, you're both right. I've done a version of that talk at both NDC Copenhagen, where we were together, and then also that was actually a practice run, and I did it at Ignite. But the idea was that it is saying the most likely next thing that you might want to say. So in the beginning, the very beginning of the talk, and you can find it on YouTube, I say it's a beautiful day. Let's go to the, and then we wait for the audience. And some of the audience yells out park, and some of the audience yells out beach, and every once in a while, someone will yell out McDonald's, or or something weird. And then the question is, what's the right answer? And that's why generative AI is interesting, because they're all the right answer. They're the right answer for you. They're the right answer given context. And to argue that they are the wrong answer, as opposed to being the most likely answer, is where things get really interesting. So then from that point, we do a bunch of live demos, all 100% live, nothing is recorded. We see the AI generate wrong things. We talk about those wrong things, and then we talk about what it means to generate something wrong, and then also the ethics and responsibility behind generating something that might be an opinion or is just simply not factual.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is a fantastic definition of generative AI with a great example as well,
Yeah.
because that's something that everyone can relate to. That
Relate
sample.
to.
You've even there was the autocomplete challenge on your phone when you type the exact same thing in your phone and see what it predicts is gonna happen next. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, we did a version of this, myself and Mark Downey, at Ignite, and we walked through, here's It's a Beautiful Day. Let's go to the, and we write it directly into the OpenAI playground, and then we go from there. There's many versions of this. I think that the Ignite version is an excellent one, because you get to see Mark Downey showing daily builds of Copilot that had not been released yet, and seeing what it would do. And in one case, Copilot makes a mistake, and then Mark stops the presentation, and then we dig into why the mistake was made, and we talk about how is it a mistake? It's only a mistake because Mark thought it was, right?
Yeah,
Because at that point it wasn't the code that he needed, and that is a really interesting conversation.
like you just said, the AI is not wrong, or the model's not wrong. It's just the context
Context,
that's
yeah.
different. Like it's
Yeah,
giving you some
yeah. In that
information because
case,
of the context.
exactly. In that case, it felt very wrong, and maybe it may have compiled, but it may not have solved the business problem. And then that gets into philosophical discussions of the definition of wrong.
Yeah,
Isn't it like everything in tech? Everything in tech has a place. It's
yeah.
all about choosing what is appropriate
I mean,
for
are you going to
that
say it
context.
depends, Polima? It depends.
Yeah.
That's no such thing. I was gonna ask you. You mentioned co-pilots there. We were talking earlier. Hank said there's like over 250 something co-pilots in Microsoft. Do you have a favorite co-pilot? One that you're using all the time?
I think the one I'm using mostly is GitHub Copilot, specifically the chat interface. There's within Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, the Copilot is like the backend service that is the generative AI that is smart about code. There's the talking to it in chat, and then there's the typing in your code, and then it auto completes a big chunk of text. I very much prefer the chat one because I use it as a rubber duck. Are you familiar with rubber ducking?
Yeah.
Right? For those who may be listening who may not be familiar, the idea is it's 2 a.m, it's a Tuesday night, and you're trying to ship something and you are stuck. And you got to call somebody, but you can't because it's 2 a.m. So you have a rubber duck that you put on your monitor, and you explain the problem to the duck. And in the explaining, you solve the problem, just like talking to maybe your non-technical spouse, so you're able to work through the problem. And I use Copilot as a rubber duck, where I'll ask it to explain the code, I'll tell it what I think, and we'll go back and forth. And what's nice about it is that it is infinitely patient. with me, which is what you like in a duck
Yeah.
or a pair programmer from work.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were geeking out earlier today about copilots and specifically GitHub Copilot and how it works really nicely for doing C# development. So yeah, it's great to hear you using it too, and a fan.
Talking about C Sharp, Microsoft recently released a C Sharp certified, like a certification course on C Sharp on
Mm.
Free Code Camp. Should we talk about that a bit?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that was led by Katie Savage on my team, and we partnered up with Free Code Camp to create a foundational C# certificate that you could get through Free Code Camp. So this is an emerging kind of a level 100 emerging developer certificate, but by the end of it, you'll have a good solid understanding of object-oriented principles. And this is a collaboration between Free Code Camp and Microsoft Learn. So you're building up your Learn profile, you're getting trophies or like achievements within that, and then those achievements are read in using an API into Free Code Camp, and then if you move through the process, you get an official certificate from Free Code Camp, and you move all the way through from simple stuff to adding logic to deep debugging, and then once you get your certification, you can go and see that official certification and then add it directly to your LinkedIn. And this is signed by Julia Lucen, who's our president of the developer division.
I've been
Very
seeing
cool.
this as one of the recommended resources by a lot of people I know, to people who want to learn C Sharp. So this is something definitely on my checklist as well
Mm.
to have a look into, because I think I can also learn something from it.
It's that interesting one, C#, because there's and .NET in general, because there's always felt a barrier, rightfully or wrongfully. I don't think rightfully, but uh, a load of universities haven't been using it as their teaching language. People are teaching Java, they're teaching Python, and so a lot of the people are leaving school thinking those are the things I need to learn. When actual fact, C# in general, we've all made very great
Yeah,
careers off writing it, but
absolutely.
it's a fantastic language. It does basically everything that all the others do and more, and is incredibly commercially viable. You can go out there, get a job writing C# day one. I think the community is a bit more embracive of those entry level people as well, perhaps, than other places. Oh yeah, a fantastic. That's cool. That's good.
Sorry,
It's
I just
progress.
you mentioned universities, so I felt the need to point out that there are in fact universities that are using C#. A lot of them out there. No, certainly it's not Java and it's not JavaScript, but it is doing okay.
Yeah,
And I
well,
think
that's
that
good.
having it be cross-platform and open source, which is the reason that I went to Microsoft in the first place, it has a little bit of value.
And this free code camp thing, I think only bolsters that really. It's only going to improve the visibility of the language and get more people out there learning. My first experience of, say, a Microsoft programming language was Visual Basic, just because I found a tutorial and it was something I could follow along with and install Visual Studio, get up and running. I could, with proper drag and drop, create a field and it all shows up. Yeah, it's great.
I started with
Yep, ultimately,
VB.NET
oh, sorry.
and then moved on to C Sharp.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, ultimately, I just want people to use the language that makes them happy,
yeah.
whether that be C# or F# or whatever, and certainly mix and match. And we're almost always either deploying to the open web. So whatever you're doing, as long as it's making web standards, you're gonna win.
Yeah. You mentioned open source there, and that being one of the big reasons you joined Microsoft in the first place. Um, we had a question actually from Paul Seal, who's a prolific contributor in our community. He said he knows that you had some exposure to Umbraco maybe a long time ago. Of course, today it's all about celebrating the open source Umbraco CMS. But he asked, have you had any exposure to it recently? As in, we've only recently, say, become or moved on to the .NET Core or late modern .NET stack, and it's really come on leaps and bounds. He wants to know if you've had any exposure to it lately.
I think that I got more interested in Umbraco when also Umbraco Headless happened a couple of
Yeah,
years back. That was really interesting because then having APIs where you have whatever UI you want on top of whatever backend you want to use, and in this case, that software as a service where I just want Umbraco to handle the componentry and the items, and the categorization and tagging of stuff, and then I'll build on top of that.
yeah,
That made me go, huh, that's a clever
yeah,
architecture. And now certainly now that the move to .NET Core is complete, it is a very good time to get involved in Umbraco.
yeah, for sure. I mean, with people with the headless evolution. People have been doing Maui apps now, and it's actually
Yep,
opened up
exactly.
our community a lot more
Lot
to the wider
more.
.NET
Yeah.
community and the great things that you can do over there. So that's good to
Well,
hear.
and this is why they call Umbraco the flexible CMS, and
Yeah.
that's the thing to remember, is that it's for everybody, and you can go all in on it and use defaults, or you
Yeah.
can make it totally custom, and no one would ever know.
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic.
Friendly CMS.
It is. It's friendly. I was also going to ask about open source and health advocacy, which is something I know you've been pushing. Well, you're a big advocate for, like rights to things like insulin. You've spoken before about your open source pancreas, basically. Can you maybe tell us a bit about that? Because it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
So when I was diagnosed 30 years ago as a type 1 diabetic, and I have insulin pumps and plugins and different attachments and things that are like embedded in my arm. I've got a sensor here, and then I've got a pump over here. It moves every 3 days. The first thing that I did was try to solve it with software, and I tried to solve it with a Palm Pilot, if you remember the Palm Pilot, and I wrote an application called GlucoPilot, and GlucoPilot actually ended up on the Internet Archive. So it turns out that you can go and run versions of my software.
No way. No way.
Check this. Actually, I'll show you.
You don't still need a Palm
So
to be running this, do you?
so they if I remember correctly, they went and they made a here's the Internet Archive, and there should be a yeah, this was donated in 2014, but if I search for it, I believe they made a Palm Pilot emulator so that I could go
Oh.
and run the thing in the browser. Here you go. So here we can download the
Oh, that's
emulator,
unreal.
right? So then I can have my insulin, my average, so that if I just, I don't know if you remember on the Palm Pilot, you had to like draw
Yeah.
very specifically. So I'm remembering that, and it's insane that I remember how to do this. It was called graffiti.
God.
And then you could go and make a pie chart of
Wow.
how your blood sugar is doing.
That is
Right?
unreal.
So I've been thinking about that for a very long time. And then when folks like Dana Lewis, who is the godmother of the open source artificial pancreas, started creating these kinds of devices, later on when Bluetooth and open standards and things happen, and she built hers on a Raspberry Pi, and used to carry it around in a little pack around her waist. I got involved in that, and I started looping. And looping is managing your blood sugar in a closed loop where the system is doing all the work for you, which is unusual because most diabetics have to do all of that work manually. I became looper number 7. And then since then, I've even done some weird things like putting my blood sugar in my prompt. So that's my blood sugar right now. So then if I go to, for example, my like a GitHub folder. Actually, this is the wrong folder. And I'll go into like Hanselman. You can see I've got the current folder, my blood sugar, and then a trend line, as well as my Git branch, and then the version of .NET that I'm using.
Amazing.
So I can keep that available to me, kind of like a dashboard.
That's so cool.
And
you
that's
can
because there's
watch,
this REST API.
you can watch as you're trying to exit Vim and it's just slowly depleting and you're like
Yes, not being able to exit Vim is responsible for killing so many of us. No.
Oh dear. Oh, that's fascinating. So hang on. So how does that data feed to your terminal? How's that process working?
So in this case, I'm using what's called a Dexcom, which is implanted in my arm. That goes from here via Bluetooth to the phone, from the phone to the cloud, where it's running in an open source system called NightScout. And then NightScout has a REST API. And then that REST API lets me do things like, what's my blood sugar? And then the phone will then pop up. I think you can't hear it because my microphone is auto detecting my voice, but then it goes, your blood sugar is whatever. So I can ask, Siri or Alexa or whatever what my blood sugar is, and I can have it on dashboards around the house. And this is great for kids who might be away at school, and then their parents can monitor it, and I can also see it in a chart on my watch.
Oh, that's fascinating. It's incredible how that's all,
Yeah.
so interconnected, and maybe 10 years ago would have been like science fiction almost that you can do all of this. It's incredible.
Well, but it's about open standards, and once you get that back end, right? Once you've got that REST API, you can go nuts. I actually right now on my desktop have another floating widget showing my blood sugar as well, just because I need that information. I don't want to go looking for it. I just want to
Yeah.
be able to do my work and then glance. And it's kind of like looking at your speedometer, when you are driving.
Yeah, you don't spend the whole time glancing down trying to check your speed, but you want to be able to access it as soon as you need it. Or yeah,
Exactly.
that's great. That's great. Wow. Okay, I'm blown away by all
Yeah,
of
by
that.
the
That's
use of tech.
speechless.
Yeah.
Speechless.
Well, what I want to, if I may, what I wanted to say though is that it's not just about blood sugar, right? It could be about your kid's homework. It could be about your blood pressure. It
Yeah.
could be about the temperature in your in your where we put your plants. What's that called? You might have like a thing in the backyard where you've got all of your garden or whatever, your hot
Green.
box. Like all of that data, that IoT, that Internet of Things data could be brought into a dashboard. So I like things like Home Assistant. I've got it feeding into that as well. So
I had a
anyone
feeling
has
you
data.
might be one of these IoT home people who's kind of wired up absolutely everything to some kind of sensor. Is that true?
Yes and no, because there are those who wire things up because it's fun to wire things up. For
Sure.
me, it's more about utilitarianism. Like we have a board with a calendar, and it feeds from RSS feeds from the school that show the children's homework listed on a calendar. Yeah, I could have the temperature in the terrarium, but I don't care about that. I want to know about the weather. I want to know about the traffic. I want to know about my kids' homework and my blood sugar. And that's in the kitchen on a Raspberry Pi powered what's called a DAC board, a DAK board. You could go nuts and start hooking other things up, but I'm a big fan of being a utilitarian person.
That's great. You avoid the whole angry calls from the wife saying, "None of the lights in the house will turn on right now. What's going on? Oh, the router's crashed or something. We need to."
You have to make things, the spousal acceptance factor is important. Non-technical spouse definitely wants to feel like they can use it. So she's a nurse and she wants to push the button and the TV turns on. And if that doesn't work, then it's a useless system.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think that's very fair. I was gonna ask you again. We've spoken about the tech you're excited about currently, and is there anything in the works for 2024 that you think is going to be a big trend? AI, we're hearing a lot about currently, so that's clearly a key. We're hearing more and more about co-pilots from Microsoft. Is there something we're going to see in the next 12 months that's really going to blow us away? A new category, perhaps?
No, probably not a new category. I'm a little sad that AI is eating the world. I think that it's the new it's the new thing that everyone's just like, oh, money, and they're running in that direction. My focus is going to be making sure that AI helps people, and that AI is more like Iron Man, where we all get to wear cool suits and do stuff better, as opposed to making it like Ultron, which is scary robot takes over.
Yeah, that's a great point. There was the Apple, whatever the product is called, and the biggest criticism of it was it's so unhuman, it's so disconnecting people from real life with technology. Like it's far more important that we're making tech more about individuals and experiencing real life.
This thing here, this is the thing. This is the problem, right? I mean, a little tip as we get towards the end of our conversation, I'll just remind everyone that airplane mode works on the ground. Try to go to dinner and don't take your phone and see how long you last. If you are out with dinner with family, I encourage people to try doing what's called a phone stack. Have either of you ever done a phone stack?
Yeah.
A phone stack means you go to dinner and everyone stacks their phones in the center of the dinner table, and anyone who touches the phone first has to pay for dinner.
Oh, that's a great idea.
We have
I want you to do that
phone
and
times
report
at
back.
home.
I'm taking that away. Yeah,
But
instantly.
talking about the phone stack and the personal touch behind the scenes, of course, I was talking about the AI video that I saw about AI being used in Bollywood. There was one prolific director in India who told that AI can solve everything, but there's one thing it cannot do, which is the personal touch that I add.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, unfortunately, we've reached the end of our session. We're now running out of time. Hank told me not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm sorry, Hank. I have one slightly personal question for you, Scott, that I've always wanted to know. What's your Chipotle order? Because Like, you're a big fan. I am too. What you get in your burrito?
So it's for those who may be international, Chipotle, of course, is a taco place here that I am a big fan of. And I have 3 soft tacos with carne asada, pico de gallo, cheese, and a little bit of lettuce.
That's a great combination. That's a great combination. Thank you so much, Scott. I'm really hungry now, so I'm going to need
Me
to go and eat.
too.
Thank you so much, Scott. This has been a wonderful chat. We're thrilled to have had you join us. So have a great day.
Thank you for
Have
having
a
me.
great
I
day.
appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Amazing.
And with that, we say goodbye to Scott. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation, as I'm sure you can tell.
Oh my word, we were left speechless at
Yeah.
some points.
Definitely.
And what a great kind of finish to a not finished yet, but
Nearly finale.
nearly finished.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to have someone like Scott Hanselman turn up and speak about everything in tech.
Everything we could
Yes.
possibly want to know,
Yeah.
including his Chipotle order. Anyway, we're going to be back in a couple of seconds with our final session of the day. We're going to see the Candid Contributions team. Don't go anywhere.